Kyle Wallack. I've known Kyle since I think he was 8 years old. He's a former collegiate lacrosse player. He is the founder of Washed Apparel. He's a contemporary artist. He's done work with Cardi B and Missy Elliott. And he's a cancer survivor, which we're going to get into. So before we do that, Kathy, get us started.
Thank you.
Thank you to Mr. Perlow for the intro. Kyle, what'd you think of the intro?
I love the intro.
All right.
I've seen it before. I love it.
If you fell in love with the picture of Kyle and the curls, don't get too addicted to it because he just announced to us that he's cutting his hair, which I can't believe that he's doing that, but we may have to talk him out of it. We'll see. Kyle, thank you, my man, for carving out time. I know you got a busy night. You got to pick your sister up, and I know you got a crazy schedule anyway. But thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I wouldn't miss it.
So I am fired up. I think I've known you since you were 8 years old.
You talked about how I broke your window the other day.
A couple years ago, that's true. A couple years ago, I finally replaced the window pane in my barn that Kyle had broken when he was 8. I was throwing batting practice to him in my backyard, and he was an absolute monster. And he just ripped one right into my barn, right through the window. And, whatever it is, 20 years later, I fixed it. So, Kyle, I'm going to start here. I mean, that's how I originally knew you.
Yeah.
This little guy running around a baseball field like a maniac, just insanely talented, super competitive. Most of you guys are not from Connecticut, but he winds up going to Fairfield Prep, which is one of the best lacrosse programs probably in the country. Always just a phenomenal school. And then he goes on and plays lacrosse collegiately at Endicott. So, Kyle, tell us a little bit about, I mean, was that your first love? Was it sports?
Yeah. I mean, I would still say like it's my first love. I love sports. I've always loved competing. I've always loved like just the whole essence of sports in general. And lacrosse definitely helped me get into college, to say the least. So I love it for giving me that journey into college. And then, afterwards, I would say my first love was probably baseball when we were kids. And that stayed true to this day.
And you were a tremendous athlete. You faced some adversity at Endicott, a couple knee injuries.
Yeah,
kind of derailed your career. But then you started an apparel company. I don't even know if it was when you were still at Endicott.
Yeah, I started
Washed Apparel. Tell us about what was the inspiration to start a clothing brand, and then talk to us about kind of the journey that you had through creating something like Washed.
So it's actually a funny story. So I was, Endicott, we were really good at lacrosse. We were ranked 6th in the country. And when I was a sophomore, most of my friends had graduated, which was pretty tough for me. And I just wasn't in love with the game anymore. I remember we had this, it's my junior year. Now I'm finally starting because everyone above me was, we had like 3 or 4 All-Americans on the team. It was just a ridiculous team. So now, we're playing fall ball junior year, and I had a really good game. I had like, you only play the first half, and I put in like 3 goals and 3 assists. And my dad was really excited after the game, and I went up to him and he was like, "You had a great game." And I said, "I don't care at all." And that's when I knew that I didn't love it anymore. So I was kind of reading some commercial real estate books and kind of like just seeing what I want to do, because we had a senior internship program and I wanted to, take that seriously. And then my buddy, his stage name is Felly, great musician. He travels, he's going on tour, I think next week, 45 shows. He travels all around. I quit lacrosse and I call him like, "Hey man, I'm coming to your show in Texas." So I go to a show in Texas, and we're in the hotel room after before the show, and we're talking about the most important part of your outfit, and we decided it was your pants. So next day I missed my flight back home. So I'm in the airport for like 3 hours, and I was just like drawing like clothing company stuff and ideas, and I wanted to encompass the West and East Coast. So that's where Wash came from, because it had a W and an E in it. And then from there I started selling. We put together the package of, someone made the logos for me. I was telling him how to make it. And then there we put together, I ordered some boxes of clothing, and I was selling them out of my dorm room junior year, or the house I lived in. And everyone on campus was wearing it. And then all of a sudden, that's when Instagram, people first started, like companies and stuff started making Instagram, like 2015 or 2016. And Instagram did pretty well. So then I vetoed all the commercial real estate and everything, and I convinced my dean to let me run this company as my senior internship program. And I just went out to LA and was around all my buddies kind of in the fashion and music industry, and was off-site doing my internship program. Wasn't answering my teachers. They were screaming at me and stuff, but I was doing really well. So the final thing is a presentation. And my presentation, I just brought, I hadn't talked to my teacher in like 3 or 4 months. And I brought back like all my numbers and all my accounting stuff, and just kind of a full 35-page business plan, and just the way I wanted to take the company. And then after college, that's kind of what I did that's what I did until I got sick. And then, after I got sick, I reevaluated that and came back to it. And it was a great journey, and just learning so much about business and the art side. It taught me how to do graphic design. It taught me a lot about the business side of stuff, a lot of failures, a lot of succeeding. So it's just, I would call it a roller coaster, but it was a great roller coaster.
What do you think, what was the number one thing you learned from your experience starting a business at such a young age and seeing it succeed?
I think once I started getting people involved in the business was when the business, towards the end, was when I found that the business kind of was being derailed off the direction I wanted to take it. And so I would say the biggest thing I learned is kind of just being careful with what people want out of something if it's your vision.
Yep.
Because they'll come in and change it. And then from there, budgeting was a huge thing that I learned. I learned budgeting on a daily basis, just as far as the ins and outs, learned how to build websites, learned graphic design, and essentially learned that I wanted to be an artist out of it. And it all, everything that I do painting wise and the plans I have for the future in the fashion industry, it all stems back to Washed, which was just an amazing experience, and something that was my baby, and something that I hold really close to my heart, I would say.
Was it hard to let it go?
No, it was it was easy because I felt that I had done everything that I wanted to do with it.
Yep.
And once you feel like, and I felt that for about a year. And once you feel that, you kind of just aren't putting the right amount of passion into it. And, if you look at my designs before the last year I was there, they were just way better than I would say my designs the last year. And you could just kind of tell that I was just doing it. It felt so repetitive to me, kind of doing the
Yep.
same thing over and over again. And fashion is something that I learned so much about. Like I learned grading, how to make clothes from scratch. I learned the printing process. I learned everything you need to learn about a fashion company. But it just wasn't, I was disagreeing with like my manager at the time. And it wasn't worth the disagreements in my mind because I wanted to take a step back anyways and kind of work on something for a year and a half, 2 years before I really released another clothing company that was, I would say, more refined, more sleek, just something that I could show that I can do something past a t-shirt.
It's so interesting that, lacrosse was a passion of yours, and, it had its season, and then things changed.
Yeah.
Same thing with Wash. So what's been cool for people like Meg and I to watch is this evolution of, little Kyle the athlete, Kyle this guy who's he's like buying sewing machines and making clothes and like building a company. Like that's crazy, to where you are today. And I think a lot of where you are today stems from, what happened to you kind of unexpectedly. And that was your cancer journey. Tell people about what happened, and kind of serendipitously how you got into art kind of through, you getting yourself better in New York City, as you rehab.
Yeah. So that was, I graduated college. You graduate, May, March, April, May. Yeah, no. Yeah, you graduate college. And then I immediately moved to New York City with like 6 boxes of clothes, a rack, and I'm ready to go. I'm like, all right, perfect. I've been waiting for this for a year and a half. So I'm in my little studio apartment, like so small, probably half the size of the upstairs of my current like painting studio, which is so funny to think back and think that I was running a full company out of like off a bed pretty much.
Right.
So I'm there, everything's going great. I love New York City. I love everything about that city. And I have this like reoccurring lump on my head and we can't figure out what it is. I'm in and out of the doctors for a year. I'm having needles stuck in my head. They're sucking like stuff out of it. And then finally, they suck it out and they're like, all right, this is like stuff that's in it's getting a little suspicious. So we're going to have to do pretty much a biopsy where they had to like cut my head open and cut the top off. They did a biopsy on the tumor, I guess it was. And it comes back negative. So I'm like, my family and I are like celebrating. Oh, this is great. Doctor's telling us 98% of the time when the top comes back negative, so does the rest. We're like, great. So then like 2 weeks later, my mom and dad come knocking on my door. And I'm like, this is super weird. How are you guys doing? I didn't even really know you were coming. And they're like, all right, pals. And they're like, you have cancer. And I was like, okay. Because I was, after they told me it was okay, I'm the type of person that's like, all right, let's move on. That was scary. So they were getting all the information. So we sat down, I had cancer. So they're like, all right, we can schedule this for 3 months from now, or we can do this next week. And I was like, we're doing it next week. So they cut me open from like the top of my ear down like to the bottom of my neck, opened my face up, got me like, I don't even know like what they had me on when I was under there, but pretty much fully open this side of my face, and all my nerves and stuff are on like machines being shocked to try to keep them alive. Whole 9 yards. Get out of surgery. I'm like down 20 pounds just because, all of this stuff that I had to endure. I have a tube coming out of my neck. I can't open my mouth. I have two black eyes. Like, I was just a mess. And the nurses were yelling at me because after I got over all the anesthesia and stuff, I was like on the phone with China because I just put like a huge order of clothes in with China and I was getting good stuff. So I'm like pacing the hospital, trying to like get my clothes back and all of that stuff. And that was my final drop before I started recovering. I couldn't look at like the computer screen for a year and a half. It would make me throw up because like the Blu-rays and stuff, migraines, couldn't stand up, wasn't supposed to go up and down stairs. So I'm literally just trapped in a New York apartment. And my parents obviously wanted me home, but I was like, no, I have to be in New York. Like, I'll figure this out somehow. So I go out one day and I had my friends bringing me food, my parents like coming in and making sure I'm good. Everyone around me was being, amazing people. So then one day I go out, get a sandwich from the deli, like right on the corner. I didn't really go out during these times because people would look at me like I was an alien, like stuff coming out of my neck, stitches all down my face. Just, it made people uncomfortable, I think. So I go down, I get a sandwich and I come back and there's an easel in the garbage in my hallway. And I'm with one of my buddies and I go, grab that easel for me. I don't even know why I told him. I say, grab that easel, bring it upstairs. And then I texted my other friend and I said, hey, can you bring me some paint? And then I started painting these robots just kind of the next day. I was just in my apartment all day painting, kept painting, started on small canvases. And then there was a event on the town green, I remember. And I was like, oh, great, I'm going to sell some wash there. And I was like, maybe I'll bring some of these paintings. So I remember I sold my first like 3 paintings there. People drove from like Milford and Fairfield and stuff to come, and I was really taken back by that. And they didn't come for the clothes, they came to buy the paintings. They're like, how much are these? I was like, I have no idea, $40. And they gave me $40 and I sold like 3 paintings that day. And then I started, painting on bigger stuff and it started going well. And I fell in love with painting and I fell in love with just art in general. It just was so like interesting seeing kind of a painting transaction and then being in New York City and seeing all the big galleries and then seeing all the street art. And just seeing kind of just the amount of art that was in New York City after I started realizing that art could be, something that you could do for a career. And I just became fully obsessed with it. And, then I started getting into the robots and started kind of expressing myself through the robots where they have wires coming out of them and stuff. And that I found kind of helped me after being in bed for so long. And I kind of just turned my apartment. I kind of just put my bed in the corner of one of my bedrooms and turned my whole apartment into a studio and just haven't looked back since.
What I think is remarkable, Kyle, is something you just said, and I don't even think you realize it. For most human beings, when they realize that there is a ton of art in New York City, they would say, well, there's no way I can be an artist. Like, I don't have formal art training. And there's all this art and all these amazing artists, and they would never try.
Yeah.
But that's not you.
No.
And I think that's remarkable that you weren't intimidated. You were inspired.
Yes.
Instead of being intimidated.
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes back to Washed, and I already kind of just went through a journey of like, many people not I don't want to say not believing because that's not the right word. Because, when you're doing something that you want to succeed in. No one's going to believe in you until you're succeeding in it. But I guess I would say people were wary about it when I first started doing it. So I already kind of went through that journey in one aspect of my life, and I saw how I could mesh the two. And it really opened my eyes to just the amount that I actually like designing the clothes and putting the graphics on t-shirts. And now I could take that and put it on a canvas, and maybe one day it goes somewhere. I think that was something that was awesome. And then it was also just kind of an outlet. It was just something to do at that time. And it was just something that once I did it once, I couldn't stop doing it. And then I'm spending all my money on paint and canvases and all this stuff. My friends are coming to my house and they're like, where did this come from? Like, there's 30 paintings in here now. And I've been here like after a month. So I was just kind of going off at the time and just not even realizing what I was doing. And I sold some canvases in New York, and I regret it now, for, like $500, $400, some big ones. And looking back on them, I'm like, those are some of my most memorable pieces that I've ever done in my life.
Amazing. Tell everybody the Cardi B story. I love this story.
Okay. This story,
Cardi B, just like, maybe at the time the biggest artist on the planet.
Yeah, so Cardi B was the biggest artist in New York at the time, pretty much. She's dating one of like the Migos, who's like one of the biggest rappers at the time. She's doing a collaboration with El Alfa, who's like one of the biggest Spanish artists. I think the video has like 24 million views, which is crazy. And I should have got paid for that, but I was young and dumb. And that goes back to the learning experience. But so I'm in a bar because my buddy's a bartender there, and I'm just kind of figuring out, what do I want to do on this Friday night? I'm gonna sit here for a bit with my friend, and then I'm probably gonna go paint, and that's like probably gonna be my Friday night. And I get a call from the creative director, because I was like he was just one of my friends. I actually didn't even know that he did this, but I guess he was creative directing the video, and doing all the set design and stuff. And he calls me, he's like, hey, so do you have any paintings? And I was like, yeah, I have a ton of paintings. And he said, well, half the room is for Cardi B, and it's like all pink and bubbly. And the other half of the room is for El Alfa. And there's records on the wall, and it's kind of like more of like a street kind of room. He's like, if I show them some of your paintings and they like a couple, can you get them here? You have like 40 minutes. And it's in Brooklyn, and I'm on like 7th Street in New York. Or I'm on 11th Street and I lived on 7th Street. I was like, yeah, I'll be there. So I'm sending them some of my art. They pick 2. I am fully sprinting from 11th Street to 7th Street. Call an Uber, get the 2 paintings they like, call an Uber. The Uber driver pulls up and he's like, my Uber's not for paintings, it's for people. And I'm like, come on, man. I'm going to like Cardi B music set. You can come on the set with me. Just like drive me there. And he's like, no. I'm like, all right, whatever. No. I'm like, you cancel it then, because I'm not giving you $5, because I was being petty. And then all of a sudden, like one of those minivan XL taxis comes down my road empty, which never happens on a Friday night at it's like 10 o'clock. Never happens. And the cab's empty. So I flag him down. I'm like, hey, I'm going to the Cardi B music video set. I need to get these paintings there. We need to be there in like 20 minutes at this point. And the guy's like, okay, let's go. So we get in, and he is just flying through New York City. And we got him there. I walked inside. It was awesome. I didn't even get to see them hang it or anything, because you had to sign all these NDAs and all this stuff to even walk in the building. And it was just, I don't know why, but I just didn't feel like signing the NDAs, because I wanted to like sneak a picture and like show my friends. So I was like, I'm not signing the NDAs. So I saw him like hang him real quick. I snuck a picture, and then I left because I was like, you're going to check my phone. This is a memory for me. I'm going to go. And I left and just went about my night like
Yeah,
regularly.
just a normal Friday night.
Yeah, I guess like Cardi B and stuff, they didn't show up till like 4 in the morning. And they filmed from like 4 in the morning to like noon the next day. And then I picked them up the next day and had to wait like 6 or 7 months for them to come out. And the guy who was producing the video was sending me like little clips of my stuff in it. And he was like, if these hit the internet before this video comes out, like we're going to have a major problem. I was like, they're not going to hit the internet. I promise. I kept bothering for the videos, kept bothering them. So this is the first like really big thing I ever did. And then the video finally came out. And actually at the end of the video, they used their logo in one of my robot's eyes as like the ending of the video. And that was something that I was really happy about.
Very, very cool. So what's the song in the video so people can look it up?
So it's called Me Mommy by El Alfo and Cardi B.
So check out the video and you will see Kyle's art. But that, as a new artist, I mean, that had to be surreal.
Yeah, that was the moment where I was like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Unbelievable. I know people want to ask questions, but I've got a few more questions for you. Where do you find inspiration for your art? Because one of the things, so you went through kind of a robot phase, you had a Winnie the Pooh phase, you've done rock icons, you've done Yankee stuff. I actually brought this up from downstairs.
Oh, I love it.
Me this because I'm a big Yankee fan.
Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe.
Kissing Marilyn Monroe. And obviously, you guys have been on a million Zoom calls. This is obviously Kyle's work right behind me. Where do you draw inspiration? Because you go through all these different phases, and it's so fascinating to kind of watch the evolution.
Yeah, and that's a great question, especially for right now and what I've been thinking about, because I've created all these styles without even knowing it. And now I'm like, I just made a new style in the past year that I never thought would happen. So it just is experimental, and you really have to think about what you want to say and how you want to connect to people. Because at the end of the day, you want someone to look at what you're making and they have to feel something. If they don't feel anything, then it's not worth anything. It's not, you didn't do a good job if someone looks at something and they don't feel anything. In the beginning, the robots were I painted a square on a canvas because I was like, I don't know how to do this. And I did this like abstract background and then painted like a random square in the middle. And then I just made it a robot. And then started thinking about it, and I started doing like robots with wires coming out of their head and like their heart and all this like different stuff I was going through. Like I had cancer, and like the girl that I was dating while I had cancer she kind of went a little cuckoo. So I went through heartbreak. So then you saw the wires coming out of the heart, and then you can't go outside. So, the Pooh Bears and stuff came from like this whole notion of like dead mafia, which was like kind of where I was, because I was kind of dead to the world because I was just inside and I couldn't go outside, and I didn't know what was going on outside. And Pooh Bear's like just kind of nostalgic. And then, from there I went into these like single line faces, which you'll see in the Cardi B music video, which is almost, when I look back on it, was just like me being cooped up and me just being like almost just scribbling and like experimenting and doing all that type of stuff. And then, as I get older and I realize what I want to express, it's really more of like what I want to say at that moment. Like I went through something 2 months ago with my dad owning Old Schoolhouse Deli and stuff where, I did a reflection on COVID and just how hard he worked during that. And I did this painting here. I can bring you guys closer to it, actually. And I did this here, which is about supporting local businesses. And we all know that Amazon just absolutely crushed it during COVID. And nothing against Amazon, but they crushed it during COVID. So there's people, breaking into an Amazon cart and support local businesses. And then I did this one, which this one's a little more aggressive, but a little kid in the lemonade stand and an Amazon plane dropping bombs, because it was like, I was like, well, what about the little kids and their lemonade stands, and just everything that goes into like your local businesses. And being from Madison, there's, everyone supports the local businesses there. That's just how you grow up. And then I did this endangered species painting, which I was just reading about them and I just wanted to do this. So it's a rhino, and then the shirt says endangered, not extinct, and preserve biodiversity. So just little things you come up with throughout your journey, and just like, you really have to put your like idea of not expressing your, like, because in our society men are supposed to like not express themselves, and you just have to put that aside and just put it on the canvas.
Yep. Incredible. When do you think you realized you were an outlier? Like, you're not like most people. And I say that in a very, very good way.
I appreciate that. I wouldn't want to be not that. I always felt like, it's so cliche, but you always, like, all of us outliers always feel different growing up. Like, you have friends and you do everything like a normal kid and a normal people do in Madison when you're there. But I always felt like, even I remember when I was 4 years old, I would tell my mom I'm gonna buy her a Jaguar because I want to play for the New York Yankees. I always just like felt like I was gonna do something.
Yep.
Never knew what it was gonna be. I think Washed really was the first thing that showed me that you can really do anything. And then I think painting wise, I think the gallery that I had in Westport was kind of just a moment in my career where I just felt different, because I put a lot into that show, and I'm not a social media person. I need to do it, but it's tough to do it. And, the reason I did that show is because I envy the 70s rock and roll people, because it was the last generation before social media, before like the Rolling Stones magazines, before all of that stuff. They were just kind of going and they were just making noise wherever they went. And then, the snowball effect. And that's kind of the approach that I hope to take, would bring back that like old school marketing. And, you really have to be there to experience it, because if you're seeing it through a screen every day, you're not really experiencing like the full idea of everything. And that's why I just booked a show for 2025 in January, and it's a big 25,000 square foot warehouse. And it's going to be in St. Petersburg, and a really famous artist, Banksy, did one there like 2 months ago that I went to. And that's kind of the approach that I'm like looking to take, would be kind of more of that like old school approach on this whole thing. And I think that's where I have started to see that I'm an outlier, because I don't like necessarily think the way everyone in our society who makes art, who does this or who does this think.
It's amazing. So guys, if you don't, so Kyle just turned 29 last week.
That's right.
And he's lived like 6 lives.
Literally.
And he's iterated and he's succeeded. And I think what's cool is we're on this call right now. In 5 years from now, I have no effing idea what Kyle's going to be doing, but I know it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to be excited about it, because he's just an incredible human being. just an unbelievable inspiration. So it's cool to be on these calls. You know, we really run the gamut. I mean, we just booked the founder of North Face. He's 81 years old. His name's Hap Claw. Phenomenal guy. Had a great conversation with him a couple of days ago. And you know, so we run the gamut from the been there, done that to, you know, Kyle. What does the future hold for him? It's going to be exciting to see, and it's cool to see people like Chris Wilson on this call, because Chris is getting started in really kind of high-end storytelling, videography, and he's doing beautiful work. So it's kind of cool to see this young generation create kind of their own path. So anyway, I'm lucky because I get to talk to you all the time.
I'm lucky too.
I'm gonna let some of these outliers ask you some questions. So we're gonna go to Alex Smith in Florida first. Alex, you're up with KW.
Kyle, man, when you said you were 29, man, I was like, you are blowing me away. I'm 42 now, and I feel like I could live another 10 or 20 years and not catch up.
Hey, I'm an artist. I'm supposed to go through all that, right?
Yeah, I love it. I love art. I got this awesome photo in the back of me, and I've always like really appreciated graffiti too, and just kind of the different styles. Like, you know, when I was in high school, I looked at different like cities and how like, you know, like different work. Like I even wrote my name in graffiti. Like I'm not, you know, super talented, but I liked, you know, bubble letters. So I wrote my name in bubble letters on my, you know, high school bedroom. So that was fun. But I'm just like, before my question, I just wanted to say, like, you had me thinking. You said two things that really struck me, because I wrote a post on LinkedIn about this today, and I was listening to a podcast with Ed Milet and Jay Shetty. If anybody, you know, listens to this podcast, I highly recommend it. I'm a podcast host myself, but On Purpose with Jay Shetty is such a good podcast. And they were talking about, like, you know, sometimes in your life, like, it's just one more thing. Like, we don't realize that, like, you know, when we're stuck, there could be just one more relationship, one more idea, one more, like, you know, thing that gets us from just where we are to being, like, you know, maybe like our big break or successful for you, like Cardi B, or even just the robots. But like you created it from a place of just absolute like trauma and despair, which is amazing to me. And he said, what kind of, you know, made me think about it is because he said, I think it was Ed Milet, he said, like, our issue isn't vision, you know, like, it's like, sometimes I'm like, where am I going to be in a couple of years? And like, I don't have a vision for where I want to be. And I'm like, I don't have a plan. Like, I have, you know, things I want to do now, but I don't know where it's going to lead me. And I don't think like you had a plan for where the hell this was going to lead you, but you were just in the moment. Cause you just said, like, I was just creating, what I was feeling in the moment. You said something like that. And that's where like the robots came from, all these, like, it was just from your place of emotion. You were like, oh, these robots are going to get me paid one day. You know, you were just expressing yourself. And I thought that was really key. So I just wanted to tell you that, that really struck me, because like a lot of people can't really do that. Like he said, the issue wasn't a vision. It was like depth perception, meaning like, he was basically like, we can't, you know, give ourselves credit for where we are today, that we're like so close to where our goals want to be. But like when you were, you know, when you have cancer teeming through your body, it's hard to even know how to get past that step. So I just wanted to say that I recognize that. And I guess before my question was going to be totally unrelated to that. It was just about graffiti, but I just wanted to tell you that.
I really appreciate that. That means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. My question was just kind of like, I don't know if you could kind of give me some perspective on graffiti, because I don't have friends that do it. I've had friends when I was growing up that used to deface stuff, but yeah. I'm curious to ask your opinion about this, because like when I see people like true artists that are like, you know, go into a building and they paint something awesome on a building, but maybe they do it illegally, but they're they're expressing themselves and maybe, in ways to, I don't know, give something to the community.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, what your opinion is of, like, I'm sure there's a wide range of graffiti artists that are doing it just to, like, just do something illegal. And then people that are truly like tagging things, like, yeah, they're doing illegally, but they're also trying to give back. So I'm curious I guess I'm asking you, like, what is, in your opinion, good public graffiti, and what is, like, where are people going wrong with it?
So I call my like gallery work refined graffiti because it all comes from graffiti. I think everything comes from graffiti. I think it's all beautiful. I think the graffiti gives the city life. So whether someone's just doing it to be obnoxious or, someone's doing something beautiful, they're both the same, like, purposeful, meaningful art. They're just two people doing it in different ways. There's like graffiti wars. So there will be like teams, and they'll like just have this certain name that they tag, and they just want to put it up everywhere, and they just want to win. And then there's, artists like Banksy, and one of my artist friends, his name's Lucky. And there's people who are really using graffiti for marketing, and they're using the streets as billboards. And that's where you'll see like the bigger pieces and the stuff like that. But then you'll have they're called bombers, the people who come in and just write. You'll have the bombers come in and graffiti over the beautiful pieces, because people are going to look at the beautiful piece, and then they're also going to look at the name over the beautiful piece. So it's almost like I painted this painting. Well, after I got back from Miami, it says "War in the Streets," and it's like Popeye's arm. So graffiti to me is really just like a bunch of crazy artists, like, just fighting in the street with paint.
I like that.
Cool.
That's nice.
Very cool. Jamie Headley in Michigan, you are up with Kyle.
All right. Hey, Kyle. Nice to see you. I am not an artist, but I was the VP of operations for art.com. I worked directly for Mark Getty, Getty Images, and obviously Getty Museum. I worked with a ton of amazing artists.
You send him my apologies that I have used his stuff illegally, probably many times.
I didn't hear that.
I'd like to say
you are allowed to.
I'm very sorry.
Plausible deniability. I know nothing about it. But
this is taped and will be archived, so that's probably not smart of me.
It's been a while, but I got to work with amazing artists, and it was really interesting. I'm a big fan of art. Like I said, I have no creative talent there, but also seeing the commercialization of art. So watching an amazing print go from an original to limited signed copies to mass production to, hey, now it's on a accessories thing in Walmart. And you want, like I said, I know a lot of artists, and I want them paid. I want them to get paid for their art.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, what's your feeling on, is there a point, or is like, what, hey, whatever, just roll with it? Or what do you feel about that?
I think that you need to create your own path. I don't like what they did with Andy Warhol and Basquiat's and Keith Haring's work over the last 2 years. I have a very strong opinion on that. I think it was unnecessary. They did commercialize it, and it's great, but I agree, like, it's just too commercialized. My approach is, and part of the reason that my career has taken time, my approach is very personal. And, if a big company wants to approach you and they want to pay you and they want to do collaboration, that's amazing. But, like, you can't put your art in my opinion, I don't think you can put your art in TJ Maxx and then try to sell someone a canvas for $10,000. As far as, yeah, as
so
part, yeah, it's very interesting that it gets there, but it's also your personal integrity on, like, how you value your art and, like, how you value almost your thoughts. So I love Banksy. I think that he's hilarious. I think that everyone wants his art, but no one can get it. And I love that about it. Now, you know, there are signed prints and stuff like that that I would love to do. I'm just not necessarily like I did it during COVID a lot, but I'm not necessarily there yet. I'm trying to take the step into, you know, like a bunch more galleries than I'm in right now. And I need a bunch more PR and just more eyes on my art at this point. But I think the integrity of the artist is really the most important part of it. And as long as if the integrity of the artist is to be a commercial artist like that, that's fine. I just don't think the value throughout history will be the same as it would be if you're an artist like Banksy, or you're an artist like Warhol, or you're an artist like Herring, or, you know, like Murakami. Perfect example of someone who's pretty commercial with his art, but he does still hold his integrity with the companies that he works with. So I respect him for that a lot. But my vision would be more of a Banksy, Warhol, Herring, more exclusive, like more, you know, just saying more with my art through each step of my life and how people can relate to it. So as far as the commercial stuff goes, there's, you know, not much that I necessarily have to say about it in my personal career, because it just doesn't interest me as much as it interests other people. But I don't like what they did with Warhol, Basquiat's, and Keith Haring's work over the last 2 years. I think that it was almost disrespectful in a way.
So you don't want your art on like a koozie and a scarf and a cocktail napkin.
No.
But he does want it on a beer.
But on a
But I
beer
want it
can,
on
yes.
beer. So see, you got to pick your
different.
collaborations.
That's different.
But that's one of a kind. That's a one of a kind thing. That's
Yeah.
not. That's
Yeah,
not
no, it depends.
commercialized.
Like,
Edition, yeah.
if Tiffany comes to you, right? Because Tiffany is a company where, you know, they sell things for how much you sell your art. That's a different story. If it makes sense commercially, then that's awesome. You have to go for it. But if you're only doing it to like sell 400,000 units in Walmart, I can't get behind that.
Love it.
Good for you.
Randy Ostrow in Florida. You're up.
Quick question and then a suggestion. Not a suggestion, but I have another question actually. Back in the day, did you photograph all of the paintings, like the ones that you sold for $40? Did you have the insight back then? Because I don't probably think we had iPhones. Have you been able to capture everything that you've sold?
So I haven't captured everything, but I have a lot. My website, it's thekwgallery.com. I have a lot of it. I've gone through a lot of iPhones, to say the least, since in the last 6 or 7 years. So I don't have everything, but I could tell you every painting that I painted.
So when you were younger and first started getting started, you're 29 now. Back then, not everybody had a camera phone. Is that right? When you made your first painting?
No, so I started painting in 2018. This is all decently new.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I actually just had my 5-year cancer remission in March of this year. So
Congratulations.
I've been painting for only 5 years, which is another, like, it's been a crazy journey just through 5 years, just getting to where I'm at. But we had iPhones and stuff back then. And I'm sure if I look back in my Instagram archive, I could find a lot of the work that I did. And I have.
Okay, cool. And then the second thing, it's not really a question, but do you know who Ricky Powell is, the photographer?
That rings a bell.
You got to watch his documentary. He was the guy. A lot of the stuff that you've
I
said,
gotta write this down.
it reminds me very much of his approach. He was the photographer that traveled around with the Beastie Boys and Run DMC, and they made a documentary about his life and how the art, it just kind of came out of nowhere. One day he grabbed a camera from someone and was like, click.
Yeah.
When he felt that click, it was over. So
Yeah.
his story is different, but there was a documentary, I forget what it's called, but they called him the Rickster, and he became
awesome.
very famous. But I think you would like it very much. And I love what you're doing, Kyle.
I need to see that. If you enjoyed that one, you should watch Exit Through the Gift Shop.
Okay, I'm writing it down.
Which is a really good documentary about Mr. Brainwash and just how he was originally the videographer of all these street artists, and then they all convinced him to be an artist. And he's so famous now, but he almost takes Banksy's work, and he's the first one to ever film Banksy. He almost takes Banksy's work and Shepard Fairey's work and a bunch of all these artists' work that he was best friends with, does his own show in LA, makes $1 million first show ever, and just has been an artist ever since.
And by the way, and I'll shut up, but I just want to say one last thing. When you mentioned Andy Warhol and Basquiat, this guy became famous. He got recognized, I should say, because one day the two of them were walking down the street in Soho, walking to a gallery, and he ran up on them and got a picture. And that picture kind of put him on the map. So if you look him up, Ricky Powell, I think you will really enjoy the story.
I'm going to look that up tonight, 100%.
Thank you so much. It's great meeting you.
Great to meet you.
Kyle, when do you can you do some overtime?
I can do as much overtime as you want. I got an hour and a half with a 20-minute drop.
Oh, beautiful. Because we have a ton of questions here. People love you.
Let's rock and roll.
Tom in California, you are up.
Kyle, fellow Aries.
Yes, sir.
My birthday's this Saturday, so we could be
Oh,
Aries.
enjoy it.
So I'm curious, given your talent, which I have none of that artistic music talent at all, I never did, but you were an athlete from the beginning. Were you an artist at the beginning too? Was it in there?
No. Actually, my dad and I used to have we would draw Pokemon, and we would draw the pool in the backyard, but not I'm an artist. I was always thought I would just go into sales or commercial real estate. I was really, really into commercial real estate for a portion of my life in college, reading 600-page books about it and trying to understand it. And when I started Washed, it all just flipped, a complete switch. But sports definitely teach you a lot about adversity, and especially my college coach. He was there my freshman and sophomore year, and part of the reason I left midway through my junior year is because it just wasn't the same. And my coach was just such a good coach, and just really taught you how to be a man. And he coaches the Boston Cannons now, actually. He's Coach Quirk. He's just, I don't talk to him anymore, which is completely my fault. I kind of stay to myself a little too much at times, but he's just someone who teaches you how to go get things and how to really treat people that you appreciate as family. And I feel all of the stuff that he instilled in me has been super important in my career.
So if I can give you any advice, I would say reach out to him, send him a letter about what he meant to you.
Yeah.
I did that to a high school mentor of mine, and we reconnected after 20 years, and we're still connected now.
That's
and I
awesome.
tell you, so do it.
I got into college because of him, literally.
When people have impact on you like that, you should let them know.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a great idea. I would have never thought of that without you saying that.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thank you.
Amy in Idaho, who is also an artist.
Awesome.
You're up with Kyle.
First of all, Kyle, I've been dying for this event ever since I joined the Layers Project. So for me, art is kind of a spiritual connection when I paint. And I think what is difficult sometimes is being in Idaho, and we're pretty conservative, is sometimes my paintings don't go so hot here because of the subject matter that I choose to paint at times. Yeah. So my question to you is really, have you been successful doing any of the social media stuff? Because I am always posting my art on Insta, and I don't think I get anything other than DM me to be in my art gallery for X amount of dollars, So I don't even know where to market my art at so I can at least afford to buy more art supplies. Like, I'm not trying to be a millionaire, but I'd like to buy more art supplies.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And it's like an everlasting question, I feel like, right? So it's like, how do I sell this stuff? And for me, it's never gonna just like fly off the shelves in art. You have to try different things, and it really just takes the one person to believe in you, get your stuff in the gallery for it to start selling. I worked my gallery deal to even get in there for a year and a half before I even got in there. Before they even talked to me, I sent this guy a painting pretty much every single day for a year and a half, and he saw the progression and he saw it, and it really kind of like kicked me in the butt and was like, all right, this guy's noticing me. I got to make some good stuff right now. So as far as social media marketing, I find that it's so oversaturated right now, especially within art, that it's hard for me to go all in on it.
Yeah.
And I find that the algorithms are just not good, and it's just the whole thing. And, you know, I tried ads and stuff, and then that doesn't work. And, you know, I think art is really about just throwing your own art shows, reaching out to as many galleries as you can, getting denied by a million galleries to get in one. I get denied every day from a gallery. It is what it is. And that's just what comes with the territory, because a lot of galleries and stuff want, you know, that artist that had their first big break, and that, you know, they're not giving them the chance. And that's fine. And I've been working on this gallery out here in Tampa for 6-7 months now, and they don't trust local artists because they've been screwed over by local artists, and I just keep working them and keep working them. So it's really just attacking it at every angle, and eventually if you attack it at every angle, I believe that, you know, something's going to budge.
Well, I got invited to 2 different art events this year that were juried, so that's good. I have a lot of painting to do.
Yeah.
Between now and April.
My last gallery, I painted 32 paintings in 3 months.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't sleep. It was insane.
So I started painting more on plywood this year because I found acrylic palettes, nice and gel, which is freaking expensive. Like, oh my gosh, like, why did I have to get as an expensive commodity like $30 for a stupid jar, right?
Yeah.
And everybody here has been super supportive of my art, so I appreciate that. But oh man, and sometimes I like at my art bill and I still cut my university art card so I can get the discount at the art store for like, I don't want to tell you when I went to university. So like, I need that 40% off.
You have to do it. Like I was talking to Scott about this before we all got on, and I'm predominantly using spray paint. I mean, I'm getting.
I've used spray paint too. Yeah, that's expensive.
It's expensive, and I'll tell Scott, when I go, I just buy enough for like 3-4 months, and so I don't have to think about it, and I just take the hit all at once.
That's pretty much me too. I have a whole can of spray paint in the garage right now, and I'm like, don't throw it away. That was so expensive. And I don't buy the expensive stuff. I'm like Rust-Oleum?
Yeah.
So I do watercolor acrylics, soft pastels, spray paint, whatever I decide to do with my ADD mind at the moment. That's what I do.
Awesome. Let the mind fly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Amy. Tag in Madison, Connecticut.
Hey, Kyle, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, man. Amazing journey. And just for me, again, like a handful of people that have mentioned in terms of not necessarily being artistic, not a creative bone in their body per se. What a master class, brother, you've put on just in terms of, I've learned so much just in terms of some of the creative concepts and how you've had to approach things on the painting thing. And that's the piece that is really, I'm enamored with you. I've actually, through the schoolhouse deli. So like I grew up here, raising my 3 boys here with my wife, Sue, who grew up here right on Stonewall Lane, you know, a stone's throw away from the deli. And
Yeah.
so when my oldest is 24, but every Saturday we're in Schoolhouse Deli after any youth sporting event.
That is
Um,
awesome.
And so getting caught up on you as well. You know, your mom would see the boys dressed up. Oh my gosh. And I'm like, yeah, you've got kids too. What are they doing? And she would always catch up. So I kind of lost track of you after Endicott.
Yeah.
So to hear your journey and what you've gone through and, you know, with your cancer survival, and congratulations on a 5-year remission,
Thank you.
is just amazing. And our little town too, just there's so many creative people that come out of Madison and the youth. You know, ever since I started getting an education, seeing what they used to do, and sometimes finding themselves afterwards, like Christopher, who Scott mentioned, that's on here. You know, I coached him in Little League. We won a championship together. He was the winning pitcher. He was a stud. It was awesome. But Tom hit on some stuff. And so I was going to ask you, I used to teach a sport and society class in college, and like the premise was, you know, sport mirrors society. And you've answered a good chunk of this in terms of your sports background and how it's tied into, I think more so you talked on the business component, right? The resiliency, hearing no, and those kind of things. I was curious because I just have no clue, but is there any carryover from the athletics piece to that creativity piece when you're thinking about getting on the canvas or getting into the canvas? And if so, is there any similarities or just similarities, and what does that look like and feel like?
So that's an amazing question. Golf and painting is the same thing. Because you have to be creative. I think as far as like going through adversity and stuff with sports and college sports and stuff like that, knee surgeries, all that stuff fuels your creativity and kind of gets you to where you want to go. But if you lacrosse is a pretty creative sport. I played attack, so it's like pretty creative sport. You kind of have to be nifty and shifty. But I've been playing a lot of golf, and it's like very interesting to see how my buddies hit their shots and their thought process compared to how I hit my shots and my thought process. And I beat them every time, but they think that I'm just absolutely nuts because I just I just try ridiculous shots. So I think as far as the two go together, I would say in my, now that I'm older, I can understand the mesh of them more. But I think everything about sports is creative. Look at Patrick Mahomes. That man is an artist. They're the best pitchers in the MLB, they're artists. So I even always say sometimes art isn't everything that someone is doing. Entrepreneurship, that's 100% a form of art. It's a creative way to make something. So I think that people use the term art way too based on visual art or art like this, when I think art is all around us every day. It's whatever you want to make it. And I always go back to entrepreneurship, and I think entrepreneurship is a massive form of art that isn't recognized as a form of art, because it's the mind of an entrepreneur and someone who's in that business is so creative to get to where they need to go.
Nice.
That was like a mic drop moment. I mean, we still have questions, but that was phenomenal. And I think it's so true. We've got 3 more questions.
Sounds good.
Scott in Illinois, the good Colonel, what's up?
Hey, thank you, Scott. Kyle, again, this has just been awesome. Yeah, I don't want to follow this last, bit of knowledge here, but let me throw a little different one at you. So I've got a 18-year-old son.
Yeah.
He was diagnosed with autism at very young age, like 2.5.
Yeah.
And it's been very interesting to watch his life through that perspective.
Yeah.
Just how he looks at things. And he didn't really get into art until probably junior high and senior high. But what has really inspired him now is artwork on the computer. So he's not a graphic artist, but what he does is design a lot of structural things. He really has a fascination with buildings and construction and things like that. But he'll put things that are really unconventional. They don't make any sense, like a pipe that goes to nowhere. And it's beautiful, like the way he does it. And he's going to head off to college in the fall and get into TV and film production because
Awesome.
the movies that he films are very unconventional too, and he just has a different way to think about things. So if you had a classroom of kids these days, they don't have to be on the spectrum, just a bunch of kids interested or who are dabbling in art, and you're the mentor in front of that classroom, what are you telling them to do, and how are you continuing to inspire their lives to maybe continue in this direction for the next 5-10 years or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think each person and how you have to inspire them would be different. So I'd be pretty personal with the students. But it's really just about, this person gave me this advice one time, and he said, look at enough art to get inspired, but don't look at enough art to make it. So like, look at enough art and look at enough inspiration and inspire yourself. But when you go to make it, don't look at enough where you're making something like the art you're looking at. And for your son, I love the unconventional, the pipes in different places, because I'll have to get his name for you next time I'm at the golf course. But where I play golf, there was actually an artist, and he became pretty famous, and his whole form of painting was painting like unconventional golf holes. So it would be like this huge, beautiful waterfall and like just crazy scenery with a green and a golf hole in the middle of it, or like a perspective of like just amazing perspective. So when you said that about your son, I was like, oh, he's definitely really good, because he's doing something that most people can't even get to in their life, like doing something that makes other people feel uncomfortable and that people will tell you isn't right, but he's making it look right. That's art, like doing something that doesn't necessarily make sense, but it does make sense because you did it a certain way. So, I mean, I guess to circle back to the question, I would just tell my students to do everything and anything that they want to do until they find something that they look at and they're like, this is it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Of course.
Awesome. Love it. Lindsay, I'm not sure if you're asking this question. Is your daughter asking this question? Okay.
I don't know. So mine is you've kind of touched on some of this, but more maybe riff on this more than I have an actual question. But when you said graffiti gives the city life, and then you said expression and expressing yourself. And so like musicians, they hear beats all the time, or dancers find places in the street to dance, or like see little spots or holes, and so to just like, you live in your brain and you live in your body, but like what do you see, and like what is your life experience that maybe then somebody's like, what are you talking about? And you realize the dissonance between it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This happens with my friends a lot. So it's just a matter of perspective and kind of like really thinking about everything. Like, there's like, I feel like in our world today, everything moves so quickly, and you have, you can text someone at the drop of a hat, and you lose like interpersonal relationships. You lose perspective, you lose all this different stuff because it's all over. So for me, just kind of the distance I see when I'm talking, like all my friends are like sell insurance out here, or financial advisors, or in biotech. So we're all very different. And I often find that they come to me for advice because they know I'm going to take it for what it is. So I guess the difference would be just like the way that you express yourself or the way you look at the world is more just like taking everything for what it is and actually giving it a second of thought before you move on to the next thing, even if it's a couple seconds, but giving it a second of thought. Because I feel like if people did that, then you would really understand everything around you more.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Of course.
Last question. Our cleanup hitter for the day Oh, I can tell you're ready. Doug, you're up.
Yeah. I mean, we're already at 8:20. This is like my bedtime. I'm such a morning person. This is great, though. No, it's Kyle, you're such an old soul that I feel comfortable at least teeing this question up, and I hope it makes sense to you. But there's a wonderful quote: being wanted feeds the ego, being valued feeds the soul.
Yeah.
And I feel like everything you've described in your short 5-year journey on the art side is so personal to you.
Yeah.
Can you relate to that quote? Was there a time 5 years ago when it was more ego driven, and did you struggle with that if one of your works of art, wasn't getting traction or nobody was buying it or what have you, to the point where you're at now, if you kind of vibe where I'm going with that?
Yeah. So I would say I'm at the ego point right now. I would say early on in my career, because it's like, you're like, okay, this is what I want to do. Now I'm like, okay, this is really what I want to do. And how do I really, really do it? And how do I make people see this? And like, I do think it gets in the way at times now. But that's all part of just like marketing yourself and getting to where you want to go. So I would say in the beginning, it was the fuel to get the ego, to get the fuel back. So
Do you take it personal ever? If one of your, masterpieces does not sell at either the rate
I get
or the
angry
price?
at times. I get angry at times, but like my art dealer always laughs at me when I'm like angry. He's like, Kyle, we've been working together for 2 years, a year and a half. He's like, look at the first piece I sold and look at this piece that I sold. He's like, you are just getting so much better. He's like, so it doesn't actually matter. Just keep doing it. But like, there's times where I paint stuff and I'm like, this one's gonna sell. That one won't sell. And like one that I just like that I don't think is gonna sell will sell. And then one that I think is gonna sell will sell. And then it's just all over the place. And the industry is crazy. It's unpredictable. It's a little bit cold. Like it's just an animal kingdom of people, and you need to find the people that are willing to listen to your story and that believe in your art. And those are the people that you want selling your paintings, because you have a personal relationship with them and they care about you, and you, in the end, you care about them, because if they're getting you paid, they're getting themselves paid. So you need to do your best and they need to do their best. And as an artist, to do your best, you have to express, you have to be personal, you have to explain your story, you have to be open. Like there's so much stuff around it. So I think
is that not a beautiful way to end it though? What you just hit on, Kyle, Scott, and everybody on this call, relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Begins and ends.
It is the art world is the craziest world, and it's the relationships that I've been screwed over by a lot of people, and it stinks, but it's a learning experience and they're there for a reason. But yeah, I would say the ego is always going to be in an artist, because if an artist didn't have an ego, then they wouldn't be making art. But they do make, even if their ego is high and they're like, how didn't this sell? They're still making it from within them. So
Right.
it's kind of like an interesting, everything intertwined.
I think what's interesting, Kyle, that you just said is, because I relate it to content creators. Like I'll create a post and I'll be like, man, this thing is going to go viral. Like,
oh my
it's going to go nuts. And it's like crickets, nothing. And then I'll just, like, a thought will come to my mind. I'll just throw it out there. Like, this is my end of the day. Like, just throw it out there and boom, like it catches a little bit of fire. So I think just putting yourself out there and not worrying about the end result, because it is so unpredictable, is a lot more fun, because you don't get disappointed as often.
Yeah. You have to put your art into the world, whether it's a thought or a post. Yeah. Put your art into the world and let it burn.
Yeah.
Put it out.
Listen, guys.
Let it burn.
We got an hour and a half with Kyle, which is incredible. Kyle, I can't thank you enough. This was
thank you so much for having me.
Keep an eye on him, guys. If you got a podcast, have him on. Keep your eye out because he's 5 years into this. Since he was 24. Like, that's insane.
He might have his own podcast, More from the Swamp.
Yeah. So
Swamp
he is
TV.
right. He is in the swamp, which is his studio. So 2 floors of art for him to go nuts and create cool stuff. Kyle, man, you know how I feel about you, brother.
Yeah, you too.
I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone for listening and for being here.
Kyle, are you picking up Rachel?
I am at 9:30. She's flying in with a friend.
All right. Give her our best.
I will. Everyone have a good night.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Great.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.